what is this Vyasa Puja? What is Guru Purnima, Vyasa Purnima? Why Veda Vyasa? Why not someone else? What is the speciality about this person? There are so many. I mean, if you, most of us, we would have heard of Adi Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, so many acharyas were there. But it is not Shankaracharya Puja, it is Veda Vyasa Puja. Why like this? So actually I had my plan to give you all some idea about this Vedic heritage in the last week, start with it and give a background. So with that background, it would have been very easy to understand the current topic. I'm just muting everyone. Okay. So it would be very easy to understand the current topic. Now, because we could not continue the last week, I will have to quickly rush through few points which you will need to know. Then only you will be able to appreciate what is Vyasa Puja. So going to the start, there will be certain things which I will be covering separately in this Vedic heritage, so it would get clear. Some of these things I will say just assume and go ahead. Just assume it is there and go ahead. But in that topic of Vedic heritage which I was be taking, I would have clarified all these things. So in my probably next talk, I will try to clarify these details. But today the focus is on Vyasa Puja or Guru Puja. Now, we have one particular Bible or Grantha or whatever we want to call, that is called the Vedas. For all of us from the Sanatana Dharma, what we follow is the Vedas. Now, what are Vedas? Vedas are supposed to be Shruti. There will be certain technical terms which I'll be using. You will have to try to understand. See, the reason why these things have to be told today is we have never been exposed to such a knowledge. We have never been formally taught this knowledge, and hence we, just by talking to each other, listening to different people, we make our own assumptions and an image of what these things are, and then we continue to go ahead with it. So same way, even the Vedas, we have certain idea that it could be this, it could be one book, like the Bible is there, the Quran is there, it must be some book. But first is we have to understand what these Vedas are. Then comes the main character today, or the main hero of the talk, who is Veda Vyasa. So Veda is basically a manual. Okay, just take it for granted right now, because the explanation of this I will give you later. Right now, take it for granted. It is a working manual for the human beings to live in this world and coexist with everyone, ensuring that you will reach to your ultimate objective for which you have taken the human birth. Let me repeat. Vedas are the manual which is available for human beings. Human beings means we have intelligence, so we can understand it compared to the animals. And it is that manual which will tell you how to lead a proper life and coexist with the whole universe and still achieve your main objective of this life called the human birth. Okay, we just have to take this definition for granted and go ahead. My earlier class was supposed to be on clarifying this point. So we will just take this and go ahead, that Vedas are something which is a manual. It is a ready reckoner, ready manual to lead proper life. Now, how did the Vedas come? The Vedas are not written by anyone. Understand that Vedas are not written by anyone. It is called Apaurusheya. There is no single authorship for the Vedas. Then how did it come? The easiest and closest example which I can give you is something like a television. The television captures all the signals and then converts it into a picture and shares it to you with sound. Are you able to see the signals with your naked eye outside? No, you're not able to see it. Why? You need an instrument called a television, which will receive it, convert it to a proper form and transmit it. And once it is transmitted, then we can see it, right? So what is the basic requirement of something which is not authored? That means it has come from the Srishti. It has come from the nature. It has come from the God. That means you need to have a proper receiver and a transmitter for it. Otherwise, all of us should be able to see the Vedas, understand the Vedas, correct? But we are not able to. Why? We do not have the adequate instrument for it, correct? Another example I will tell you is, when you see a bulb has got a filament and a wire. The electricity passes through the wire, through the filament, and only the filament glows, but the wire does not glow. Correct? Only the filament part of the bulb glows, the wire does not glow, although electricity passes. Why? That is a property of the filament to glow when the electricity passes. So it has that capability. Same way, certain Shuddha Atmas or some certain pure-minded people have got such a subtle mind that they are able to capture and receive this Vedas from the nature, and they are receivers and transmitters in the language which people will understand there. So they receive it and they transmit it, and hence they are called Rishi. A person who has got a capability to receive and transmit is a Rishi. Simple. So his job is not to add or delete anything. He will just receive it and transmit it exactly as what the TV does. Whichever channel it is, the TV simply does that job very clearly. Now you decide which channel you want to see, but the TV very clearly receives the signal and transmits the signal into a form which we can understand. So the Rishis are actually converters of this Vedic wisdom which was there all over the nature. They received it and they transmitted it. Now, during that time, we are talking of at least about 5,000, 8,000 years back. People generally were of a very, very nice and a subtle mind, that they had the ability to receive. Many had the ability to receive. Like, for example, if you compare our grandfather's memory with our memory, do you agree that even today, with the oncoming of the mobile phone, how many phone numbers do you remember? We don't remember any number. Why? We have lost the ability to remember the number because we don't use that faculty. But you compare it with your grandparents, they will immediately tell you so many things which they remember by memory because they were using that faculty very frequently. We don't use it, so we have lost it. Same way, people had a very nice balanced mind, a completely subtle mind, and it was like a mirror, so they could receive it and they could transmit it, and they were the Rishis. Now, over a period of time, these Rishis were able to get it, transmit it. Now, you will have to go back to that time. Imagine one Rishi suddenly gets all this, the knowledge, he transmits. That becomes one portion. Another Rishi is transmitting. Like that, there are multiple people across the place who are transmitting continuously. So, will you have a logic or a sequence, or will it be just information galore? It will be just an information which is getting together. Okay, it is like just coming RI. Okay, there is no classification, nothing. It is not a thought over process. It is just coming in. Then over a period of time, it became so much that it was difficult for a human being to learn all this. Unless you learn it, you will not implement it. Unless you implement it, you will not achieve the purpose of this human life. Correct? So very clearly, learning was requirement to get your objective. But such a vast learning is there that humanly it is not possible to learn. So there comes our main character who is Vedavyasa. Why is called Vedavyasa? Because he was a person who had that intelligence, that high intellect, who thought that let us do one thing, let us classify this, let us segregate this. So Vedavyasa did not add anything to the Vedas, he did not remove anything from the Vedas, he only classified it. Like you imagine that the moment we decide that there is an earthquake somewhere, for that we are collecting certain ingredients. So a program is started at the clubhouse. People can come and donate food items, can come and donate kapda, can come and donate money, they can come and donate whatever they want. What will happen? As people come in, there'll be a lot of things coming. Later on, what is the job? You'll have to segregate it, separate it, and then start moving it. Right? So Vedavyasa took this responsibility of segregation of the Vedas. And what did he do? He took three basic principles in which he segregated it. The first principle he took was something which are related to a small mantra which is called a rik. It's a technical term. Just listen to it. Even if you don't understand, don't bother. So with that rik, whichever forms as a part of rik, he collated all that and called it Rigveda. Now this is the basic mantra which is going to talk of all the qualities of the devas and all the gods, so that once you praise them, they will give you. It is a simple thing. Suppose if you go, now you have to pardon me if I take certain names, because it becomes very easy to understand with names currently we see. Imagine you have been given an opportunity to go and meet Ambani. Not Anil Ambani, Dhirubhai Ambani. Huh? Okay. So you go and in front of Dhirubhai Ambani now. And obviously now imagine myself and Madhu are going in front of Hiranandani, Hiranandani or Ambani, whoever, doesn't matter. Simple, let us be very clear, why did we both go? We want something which they have a lot. We want some money from them for the Ayyappa Puja or something, correct? That is why you will go and meet them. Simply you will not go to ask, Dhirubhai, how is your health and are you enjoying? No. When you go there, you want some wealth. That is why you will ask about his health. You want some wealth of his, right? So what will you tell? Immediately if you tell him, wow, you are so nice, you have got such a lot of riches, you are a very generous person. What does that mean? Show your generosity by giving me something. You understand? So all these devatas are praised, telling that Saraswati, you are Vag Devi. Means what? Give me some bhiksha of Vag. Indra, your Bala Devata. Why? Give me some Indriyas. So you praise the Lord so that you will get something from them. This is simple. All of us are doing for some benefit or the other. Correct? Now, this portion is called the Rigveda, where you praise the God to get something. Now, for getting something, you need to have a proper protocol to do it. If you don't praise it the proper way, you will not get it. So you'll have to follow the protocol. If you have to meet the Prime Minister, or even for that, you'll have to take an appointment, go there 5 minutes early, and everything. First, only the secretary will tell you what to say, what not to say. So you follow the protocol. Same way, the Yajurveda are related to protocols. How do I use this information? How do I use this information to get some benefit to me? And that is what is called Yajurveda. So they are protocols all related to pujas, yagas, and everything. Then comes the third part, which is related to the philosophy of what it is. The sum and substance, why all these are there. And from that, especially because it is in a different meter, it is like a song, it got segregated and it is called Samaveda. And normally people call it Samagana. And as per our Sanatana Dharma, Samaveda is the high with a lot of knowledge. Why? If you have Rigveda as the milk, the Yajurveda operation on the milk, Samaveda becomes the butter. That means it's got the sum and substance of the whole milk. Sab nikal ke, it's only that filtered thing which is useful is being taken there. So the Samaveda is supposed to be very highly praised. That is why in Bhagavad Gita they say Vedanam Samavedosmi. Bhagavan never says I am Rigveda and Yajurveda. He says I am the Samaveda. I am the sum and substance of everything. That is why Samaveda was there. So like that you have, one is the mantra bhaga, the second one is the way you do it, the protocol, and third is the philosophy. So when all these three comes together, it becomes complete. Now obviously, see, even when you're organizing something in your house or in your office, you will decide certain places where you will keep certain things. Then there will be certain items which doesn't have any specific in these three. Miscellaneous category. You know, even in our accounting, if it doesn't sit in something, you'll put it as miscellaneous. Correct? So whatever did not fit into these three, there were two rishis, Atharva and Angirasa, who collated that, and that became the Atharva Veda. Okay, so typically when you talk about the Vedas, the first three Vedas are mainly taught. The Atharva Veda is more related to lot of other, like it has got a lot of siddhis in it, it has got a lot of tantra in it, it has got many other things which are supportive to these three. Okay, and that's how this four together became the whole Vedas. So now you know what will fit into Rig Veda, what. So now this thought process, a person who bought and segregated, is no one other than Veda Vyasa. Now what is Veda Vyasa's name? Is Veda Vyasa a person or is it a title? Okay, the person who did this is called Krishna Dvaipayana. Krishna Dvaipayana, why? You can call short form as KD. He is our KD. Why Krishna Dvaipayana, separate name? Because there is another one KY also with us. Who is that? Krishna Yadava, Bhagavan Krishna. So both are Krishna now. Then if you increase the Krishna into Krishna, it is Draupadi. So people can get confused. So better is we tell na, Are telco Raju Mama, BASF ka that Mama. Like that you give name na. Like that Krishna Dvaipayana was given by, he was born in that peninsula, Dvaipayana, and he was dark in nature. So his name is Krishna Dvaipayana. Okay. He was called Vyasa. Why Vyasa? He was so intelligent. He had such a Vishala Buddhi that not a normal human being can comprehend that. That is why we say Vyasaya Vishnu Rupaya Vyasa Rupaya Vishnave. So between Vyasa and Vishnu, there is no difference at all. Absolutely no difference. If you consider Vishnu, it is Vyasa. If you consider Vyasa, it is Vishnu. Okay. Now, this Krishna Dvaipayana did the Shruti ka breakup. Correct? So now you see his involvement into Shruti. Shruti is something which is not made by human being. It is the Vedas. Vedas' other name is Shruti. Why? It is heard and further propagated. Heard, propagated. Today we have books. No books were there earlier. Listen, tell, the other person listens, tells. That's how the propagation happens. Even today, if you look at it, if you sing songs, we propagate songs by listening and then saying it. We never look at a book and try to sing a song. At least Indians, it doesn't work. We may refer to some places if we shouldn't miss out, but the song is more of hearing and sing. Same way the Vedas used to be Karna Parampara. Right. Now, they had a perfect system that it did not get diluted over a period of time. Perfect system was there. I'll take it separately. But then when you see this, now you see how this Vedas got separated, segregated, not separated. It has a lot of things in it which is jumbled up. It is not a very, see, if someone is writing something, they can logically think and write it, correct? But when something comes to you, it comes as a jumbled form. It doesn't come to you very clearly. So that needs to be properly arranged, understood, made it easy, and to go ahead. So there were many people, when they were taught the Vedas, they tried to write many other things out of it, which is called as Smriti. Smriti is a technical term which has got an authorship. So what comes into the Smriti? All the Puranas will come in Smriti. The Mahabharata is a part of Smriti. The Ramayana is a part of Smriti. Why? Because you know who is the author. You know there is a person who has written it. So anything written by a person is Smriti. Anything which is not written by a person, humanly not written, it is called Shruti. Now we understand Shruti and Smriti. Shruti was segregated, classified by Vedavyasa. Now let us see how did he fit himself into the Shruti. His biggest contribution in the Shruti is he has written 18 Puranas. He is the author of 18 Puranas. All the Puranas he wrote. After writing 17 Puranas, he was not happy. So he said, let me write the best of it. And that is how the Bhagavata Purana comes into picture. So Vedavyasa is the person who has written the Bhagavata Purana as well as the 17 other Puranas, totally Ashtadasha Puranani. He is the single author. Just imagine, all your William Wordsworth and everyone are gone for a 6 abhi. Now comes this another mega program. He was not very happy with all this. He said, let me write another one. Tab tak he had references of Ramayana. Ramayana is a small one. He said, I will write a mega program. You know Ramanand Sagar and B.R. Chopra. Ramanand Sagar dekhne ke baad B.R. Chopra said, no, this is too small. I want to write a big one. So like that, Vedavyasa took the challenge of writing the Mahabharata. Mahabharata has got 96,000 shlokas. 96,000 shlokas. And how it was written? It was written by Veda, it was told by Vedavyasa, written by Ganpati. And between them, they had a very clear deal. What was the deal? Vedavyasa said, I want you to be my stenographer. Ganpati said, I will be your stenographer, no problem. But I have got one particular condition. You will have to follow that condition. Said, tell me your condition. Said that you should continuously dictate me. If you stop, I will stop writing. So the boss also put a condition now to Ganpati. Fantastic. You have such a skill and ability to write. Perfectly okay. But I will put a condition. You will not write anything which you will not understand. So whatever you have understood completely and properly only you will write. And if you didn't understand, you will wait till you understand and then only write it. And this was a very intelligent move Vedavyasa did, because to make 96,000 shlokas is not an easy thing. Continuously he has to keep, the new production should happen and execution should happen. Both should happen parallelly. So it's not an easy task. And if anywhere he stops, stenographer will run away. Okay, so that is why in many of these Mahabharatas, he started using certain shlokas which are called Kadi shlokas. That means they will be very tough to understand. Bhagavad Gita itself has got, out of the 700 odd shlokas, 30 shlokas are like this. Just the Bhagavad Gita, when you just look at it, it will look no meaning at all. Ya Nisha Sarva Bhutanam Tasyam Jagrati. It doesn't have any meaning if you just look at it. But when you look at it from a different perspective, it gives a complete different meaning. So like that, to understand the meaning, he used to give a tough ones in between. And by the time Ganpati was busy thinking what it is, and he has already created another 100 shlokas in his mind. And like that, they both did it in 18 days and he completed the whole Mahabharata. So he is an author of all the Puranas. He is the author of Mahabharata. He is actively involved in the Smriti. As much as he was involved in the Shruti, he is involved in the Smriti now. Okay. Now, the Smriti is expansion of the Vedas. If Vedas are this, if I have to give an explanation, now I'm giving you an explanation, obviously that will be bigger than the original. So Shruti is more expanding and becomes big and big. So everyone tries to put their idea of what they have understood and expands it. Then comes the third one. You can also condense the Vedas. There is a possibility to condense the Vedas. Now here is where your ability and skill is to condense it without changing the meaning at all. Without changing the meaning. You have no right to change the meaning. So without changing, you have to condense it. Like Prezi writing. You have been given 4 or 5 pages. Out of that, do a Prezi writing for half a page. That half a page Prezi writing means that you have to condense it. It is not just picking up only half a page and writing. So you have to condense without changing the meaning. And this ability to condense it and write it is called a sutra. Sutra is a very technical term, and not anything what you write can be called sutra. So the sutras have got 5 requirements, and only if they pass all the 5, it is called a sutra. Now you would have heard of this name sutra. Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, Brahma Sutra, Ayurveda Shastras, they have certain sutras, correct? Purva Mimamsa Sutra, there are many such sutras. So they are all condensed form which is written without changing the meaning of the whole system, correct? So here again, because that is talking about the philosophy of the whole Vedas. What is the philosophy? If you condense it, then it can be understood in a different way. So again, Vedavyasa was the person who wrote the Brahma Sutra. Okay, so out of these 3 are called Prakarana Grantha. You may not, it's a technical term, don't bother about it. Prakarana Grantha means these are very clearly talking about the spirituality part of it, the philosophy part of it, and that is where he has written the Brahma Sutras, and he has written many such books. Vedavyasa himself. Okay, so his job was only to sit and write. Imagine how many years he would be simply writing. If we cannot even read it, how many years he would have taken to write it? That is why he is also a Chiranjeevi. Vedavyasa is a Chiranjeevi, otherwise he will not be able to do it. So in this Prasthana Trayam, Shruti Prasthanam, Smriti Prasthanam, and Nyaya Prasthanam, in all the 3, if there was one person who was very much involved in contributing to our Sanatana Dharma, it is Vedavyasa and no one else. And a person of this stature has to be equivalent to God only and no one else. That is why Vyasaya Vishnu Rupaya Vyasa Rupaya Vishnave. Now you compare any of our acharyas, let it be Adi Shankaracharya, Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, Vallabhacharya, any acharyas, they have only learned and they have further added to it in their own ways to suit the people of the time. They have just modified it, but they have not created anything new. Vedavyasa is a creator of so many Puranas. For them, these Puranas were the base on which they studied it and moved ahead. The whole Brahma Sutra is the base. Vishishtadvaita, Dvaita, Advaita, all use the Brahma Sutra and go ahead, because that is a base text for the spirituality. And this is the reason Vedavyasa is considered to be the most biggest guru possible. Now again, when we say guru, we very loosely use this word guru. And today, sorry to say, we use this word like a slang. Kaisa guru hai tu? So it is actually like we have demeaned that word because we use it very, very, very loosely. There used to be very specific words and everyone cannot be called a guru. Let's be clear. These are some things which are not been taught to us. You have a shikshakaha, a teacher. You have a adhyapakaha, a principal. You have an acharya. Okay. Then you have someone who is called pradhan acharya. Then you will get many other mahopadhyaya. There are many such technical terms because they have got a different ability. That is why the name is conferred. Correct? And the person who is a guru is totally different than all these people. Why? Take for example an acharya. The definition of an acharya is acharya who does acharati, achanoti and acharyate. The one who studies the knowledge, gets the knowledge, converts the knowledge appropriately in the form that the student will use it and give it to the student, and he himself should also practice it. He should learn it, he should practice it, he should make it in the form by which the student understands and then give it. That person is an acharya. For example, a shikshaka, a school teacher, will only read what is there in the book. That person will not add anything, will not reduce anything, will not give any meaning or anything. It is simply just transmitting what is there in the book in a little easy, lucid way. That is shikshaka, not even an acharya. Acharya is who knows the complete, then decides to pick up what you want. So every student will have a different curriculum with an acharya. It is not a single one, because every student's capability is different, every student's level is different. And the acharya knows, it is like a doctor. The doctor knows every patient is different and we'll have to treat that way. Right? That is acharya. A guru is not even that. Then what is a guru? Whom do we call a guru? Guru has got, if you just take a simple Sanskrit dictionary, you will have at least minimum 3 pages with 3 columns. That means 27 columns filled with meaning for this word called guru in a Sanskrit dictionary, basic Sanskrit dictionary. Then which meaning applies to us when we are talking of Guru Puja? And Guru, the way it is defined is Gukaram tu andhakaram vai rukarastan nivartate andhakaro yan nivartate saha guru abhidiyate. That is the actual definition of the word guru. Gu means andhakara, ignorance. Ignorance. Ru means to remove. That person who removes ignorance is called a guru. Now, when we talk of ignorance, we are not talking about things which we do not know and we learn it in a school. No. We are referring to the highest knowledge which we are ignorant about, the Atma Vidya, the Brahma Vidya, the Moksha Shastram, which we are completely ignorant about. We may be the best of the person in the material science. We may be IIT first, MBA first, but when real issues in life comes, you will buckle down. And what you need that time is this Atma Vidya or Brahma Vidya, which helps you to go ahead. And hence, a person who is into that knowledge, embodiment of that knowledge, living with that knowledge, that person who removes your ignorance and transmits that knowledge is a guru. That is why a guru will never tell, do this or do that. He will never fish for a student. He will teach him how to fish. Okay. And that is why our biggest guru whom we know, Mahaguru, Sadguru, is Bhagavan Krishna. Correct? Bhagavan Krishna is the guru because he as a charioteer became the Jagat Guru for only one student called Arjuna. Not a big university. One teacher, one student, but that teacher was a guru. Why? In the last he said, Arjuna, I have told you everything. Now I am telling you one thing. Yate chasi tatha guru. What you feel right, now you do it. I will not tell you what to do. What you feel right, you better do it. And gurus are that way. They will equip you, they will give the knowledge, and they will give absolute freedom to do what you want, because you are the best person to know what is right for you and what is not right for you. Right? And that is why we do the Guru Puja. What is the time now? Okay. Can I take 5 more minutes?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
I will tell you about this Guru Parampara. What is this puja all about? So we know why Vyasa Puja it is. Because it is Vyasa is the person who is incomparable with anyone till now who is born. He is incarnation of God. Okay. Now why? Who is a Guru? we have given this as a guru, which is the definition of a guru. So Guru Puja and Vyasa Puja, why it is done and how it is done. So it is Mithuna Masam, the Paurnami is the normal day when you do this Vyasa Puja. Typically what happens is, this is a puja done by sannyasis. I'm talking of the traditional way. Today in every house it may be happening, but that is not our reference point. Traditionally, it is done only by sannyasis. Why? A sannyasi is a person who is called a parivrajaka. He cannot be in one place for more than 48 hours. He has to keep moving, always on the toes. That is the requirement of a specific type of sannyasi, which is called parivrajaka. The toughest, even in sannyasa, you have got gradation. Easy sannyasis, tougher sannyasis, toughest sannyasis. Like that, parivrajaka is the toughest one. And that is supposed to be the way sannyasa should be. So not more than 48 hours, you can be in the same place stationed. You have to keep moving. Now what happens is, typically during this time, the rains will start. When the rains start, they know very clearly a lot of these small insects will come out. So knowingly or unknowingly, they are going to have certain sin by killing them, walking over them. So they have to stop their movement. So what do is, they come to a place wherever, whichever is the closest village, they go, they introduce themselves, they meet the village head, they introduce themselves. I'm so and so, I have learned so and so, because people will not know who is coming there, correct? Anyone unknown person is coming, he's a sannyasi, that's all. So he will give his bona fide, and then he will request, can you give me a facility to stay for the next 4 months? That is called Chaturmasya Vratam. I want to start my Chaturmasya Vratam. I will not move from this place for 4 months. Then what will you do that time? What I will do is, I will revise whatever I have learned. It is my revision time. So I will sit and revise now. So normally what happens is, when such a person who is very genuine comes with such a request, the villagers are actually waiting for such a thing. They'll say, thank you very much. You chose our village to be here. You will be our guest. You will be our teacher. We will host you. We will take care of you. We will give you a place to stay. We will ensure you that food is given to you. Diksha is given every day to you. And you please learn. But we have one request to you. That time he'll ask, what is the request? Whatever you are learning and revising, do it loudly so that we will also benefit. And this person is more than happy to do it. And this 4 months, he is camped there, and every day such satsanga and knowledge is being shared with the local people there. So Chaturmasya is the time, vrata, where they do a lot of sannyasa anushtana. And after this 4 months, they will move out from there. And in this 4 months, those villagers and in and around villages, they get a lot of benefit from this Mahatma's knowledge. And this is how cohesively both used to very nicely work, right? Now, this has to be done by a proper way, a protocol to start it. And that starts on Guru Purnima day. The Chaturmasya Vrata starts on a Guru Purnima day, because that day he will remember all the Guru Paramparas. They have got specific puja of all the Guru Parampara. They will do all the pujas, and then they will initiate their Vrata to be in Chaturmasya Vrata. And people around will give all the facilities they want in terms of doing the puja and all, and they will partake with the prasadam. After that, the teaching will go on, and after 4 months, this person will pack up and again start going out as a wandering person. Parivrajaka, he will go out. Correct? Now, this 4 months today has got reduced to 2 months. This 4 months Chaturmasya Vratam has actually got reduced in most of the sannyasis to 2 months. They call it 4 pakshas. One paksha is 15 days. So you have 4 pakshas is equivalent to 4 months. So they will do a 2 months vratam, and after the end of the second month, they will do the Udyapana. So that is where this all Guru Puja starts actually in Sannyasa Ashrama by sannyasis and not by Grihasthas. It is never done by Grihasthas. Why? For us, we have Saraswati Puja. We do Saraswati Puja during Vijayadashmi. We do Vidyarambha during that time. But this is specially for sannyasis. And if you are there in that ashrama or the place where sannyasi is doing, you can surely be a part of it. And that is why many of these ashramas will be doing tomorrow. And many of the institution or wherever you see that a knowledgeable person is there, he will do a puja for the Guru Parampara, and all his disciples will be a part of the puja. Okay, but it is not a day-to-day puja which people do it in the houses. You don't do it in the house at all. But there is no harm in doing it. Every day you can do Guru Puja in the house. But the pratha is normally done by sannyasis. Okay, so this is the whole concept of Guru Purnima, Vyasa Puja, Vyasa Purnima, why Veda Vyasa, what is this puja, what is the benefit out of it, and how we coexist together, and by that we benefit and enrich ourselves, and that is what is Guru. And Guru has got an ocean of compassion, an ocean of compassion. Everyone, you will be very sure that you have some teacher whom you really respect even more than parents. Surely there will be one teacher at least whom you will respect too much, whichever subject that teacher is. No, that teacher is the best teacher. So that Guru and disciples relationship is a different relationship, how it gets formed, and that bond never breaks. That bond never needs to be even expressed, because it is there in the Guru's mind and the Shishya's mind. It really, that bond is a totally different bond. The rest, parents and everything, you require a biological thing, husband, wife, you require a bond to be formed. It takes time. But a Guru Shishya bond is something, ek bar ho gaya, then it never, you will always look at how to grow it further. Okay, that is this great thing which our Sanatana Dharma gives us, Guru to us. Okay, with this, I will stop it here. It's already 8 o'clock. I've taken quite a long time, and I will stop it with a Shanti mantra. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sadguru Nathane Sharanamayappa. Thank you very much. Hopefully,
Thank you, sir.
Sorry. Good. Yeah. Hopefully, if there is an interest, we can go ahead with this Vedic culture and heritage, where we will take small things like this and slowly build upon. What are the Vedas? Then what is ashrama? What is brahmacharya ashrama, grihastha ashrama? Same way, what is your Brahmana, Kshatriya, Varna system? And once you know it in the right way, you will see such a glorious and a beautiful thing it was, which has been completely disfigured today, completely broken down, and hence we are sitting with a knowledge which we ourselves do not know. When someone asks what is it, we just talk of hearsay knowledge without even being confident of what we are saying. Okay, so request is, if you want, my classes anyway are going on. Anyone wants are welcome to join it. But other than that, even here, it will be my pleasure to share something what I know, and hopefully in a very lucid way, and not making it very technically sounded one. It is difficult to understand. So that even children, even teenagers, once they have the right knowledge at the right time, after that they will not get misguided by all the other things happening around, and have a different purpose or meaning of our system. Yeah. Thank you very much. I will now leave it to Madhu.
Thank you, Rajesh. Thank you, Rajesh.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. In fact, actually, I would say you are the real guru for all of us. And the real definition, actually, you've taken from the darkness to the light and wisdom, the knowledge what we have. Because in our community, in our system, actually, Vida, there is no forced teaching. So, as you rightly said, we all are ignorant. Actually, we don't know what exactly is the culture, what is the tradition, what is exactly the Sanskrit we have. So it's completely in dark format. Now, the way you put it across things in a very simple way, you are giving us, you are taken us from dark. We will have more and more such kind of, share knowledge. We'll get an opportunity to get more and more kind of knowledge from you. And I'm sure you all will agree that, this packaging is really working. The first 20 minutes, we had all the experience of the puja, and we understood what is Guru Puja. We also had a feel that though we don't know, but still we got a feel that we are also part of that, how to do the Guru Puja. Most of us, like me, and after that, another 20 minutes, we had that experience of chanting Narayaniyam. And thank you, me. And all this kind of knowledge you are giving us such a very connecting everything in a very simple manner. And thank you so much. And definitely we look forward such kind of evening coming weeks also. And another thing which I wanted to share, that tomorrow the first batch of we have 65 students already enrolled, and the most surprising thing is, is all the 65 students, many of them are not from our Hirandani estate, but from other part of Thane. And plus, there are students from Bangalore, Kolkata, Aurangabad, Patna, and Kerala and all, So a small humble initiative. We are glad that, we walked our humble this initiative. We could evoke such a great response and interest from the parents. So it's another milestone for Hirandani Estate Ayyappa Puja. Tomorrow we are going to start this, and we hope all the students who enroll will continue further, and become. And this is a humble request, as I said, to take them to a knowledge of our and also I'm not audible. Okay. Yeah. So yes. So we are also. I'm saying there are few elders also join as students for this class. Classic example is age is not a with their condition, very clear condition from the teacher that they should not ask any kind of questions and they should not. think there is some connectivity issue. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think there is a connectivity issue with Madhu.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
We'll conclude. We'll find out.
Sure. Thank you very much. Yeah. So we'll meet next Saturday, and next Saturday we will plan and do Saraswati Puja. Okay. So children, all the children especially, they should be doing Saraswati Puja. It is good for them. So try to involve children. Try to pass this message to everyone. Next Saturday we will do Saraswati Puja.
And one more thing, Rajesh, the next week onwards, we will be using Google Meet, right?
Yeah, we can, yes, Google Meet or the other Geo Meet has also started.
Yeah, but Geo is still not in perfect form. There are a lot of complaints.
Okay.
But let's try Google Meet first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So next week onwards, we will try Google Meet.
Yeah.
So people who do not have Google Meet can download and keep it. And we will send the link. It is very simple. And now that we know how to connect, we can do it even with Google Meet easily.
Yeah.
Sure. From next week, we'll do it in Google Meet. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are stopping the session now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.